Hello and welcome back. It's time now for the Campaign Chronicles, France 24's regular countdown to the presidential elections. And for that, I'm joined by our French politics editor, Mark Powerman. Hello, Mark. And also by Nick Rushworth, who will be telling us in just a moment all the latest reaction in the press and on the web. We're going to start by talking about one issue that the candidates haven't really been talking about very much until now, and that's les banlieues, or the suburbs.
Yes, exactly. They've avoided the issue, most of them, and so today and tomorrow, François Hollande, the socialist candidate and the poll favorite, is crisscrossing some banlieues, as they're known, the downtrodden suburbs of large French towns. He was near Lyon and near Paris today, and he went there to explain that after years of being promised big plans to renovate the suburbs, to bring more schools, to bring more housing, to bring more means to those downtrodden places, he would be there not to make big promises, but to deliver, to have a sustained effort. He said that, for instance, Nicolas Sarkozy had promised so-called Marshall plans for the banlieue, and he quipped that the banlieues actually do not know who George Marshall was. It might not be very politically correct, but he meant that they don't need to have big names and lavish promises. They need to have something delivered to them. And he even took a swipe at one of Nicolas Sarkozy's supposed strong points, the fight against crime. Let's take a listen today, this Friday, at François Hollande in Vaux-en-Velin near Lyon.
The priority in these areas is employment, economic activity, and public order. It's really shocking that the right has abandoned security in many of these neighborhoods, along with the police force, who had previously been effective.
So François Hollande here attacking Nicolas Sarkozy on one of his strong points and insisting, like he has on many other issues, that the president has not delivered, that the French need to sanction him when they go to the voting booth on April 22nd. And going to the voting booth is also one of his main concerns, because there are reports that abstention will be record high in the first round. And where is the abstention most important? In those places, in those suburbs where the youth who don't have a job generally and so on do not care about politics. And the reason why François Hollande is insisting is that abstention hurts the left more than the right. Why is that? People like the elderly or farmers who vote conservative go to vote generally in droves, whereas the youth and people in downtrodden areas generally tend to stay home or think politicians are all the same. Why bother? So François Hollande was there to make sure that this is not at his disadvantage. Let's take a listen again at François Hollande.
I know a few people who deep down are expecting a low turnout this year and voter apathy. They tell themselves, if only this year young people don't vote, they will.
François Hollande speaking there. Now, to boost turnout, the Socialists have taken a page from the Obama campaign and decided to go door to door. Well, France 24's Luke Brown has that story.
This Paris suburb is a classic mix of leafy boroughs and impoverished housing estates. At the market, few may admit to not voting themselves, but many understand why their neighbours may not bother.
The parties aren't involved in real-life day-to-day things.
People are fed up with the way the government doesn't react. And that's why they prefer not to vote.
That disenchantment could be crucial in what is set to be a tight election. For these young socialist activists, with under 3 weeks to go, time is of the essence, as every vote counts.
It's mainly left-wingers that don't vote. It's up to us to go and meet people and explain to them that not voting means as good as giving your vote to the right, or even worse, to Marine Le Pen.
Recent opinion polls have indicated that almost 1 in 3 voters will stay away on election day. To make matters worse, the first round coincides with school holidays. High abstention rates could have an impact on the final result.
It can change the political power struggle, as it's working-class voters that abstain most. That generally means that it penalizes the left. But this time around, there are also people who are disappointed with Nicolas Sarkozy.
That
could also penalize the incumbent president.
As the young socialists pack up their affairs and head for the next leafleting rendezvous, the great unknown of the 2012 vote remains the total turnout, even if some have already made their choice.
Well, in total contrast to the tough side of this French presidential election campaign, we take a look at some of the more comic sides. That's with Nicholas Rushworth. Nick, what have you got up your sleeve?
Well, of course, looking over the various sites that are covering the election campaign, I quickly saw lemonde.fr, and its blog is called Big Browser, which if you pronounce it in French actually sounds like Big Brother. Big Browser. And so it's a bit of a comment piece, and they've chosen something a bit offbeat about the campaign, and we can just look there. You can see that there's a video of Love Boat there. You can see Nicolas Sarkozy as captain of the vessel, Henri Guénaud as your ship's doctor, and Jeff Copé as your yeoman purser. So it goes on, the whole team. The best thing would be to have the music, of course, of Love Boat. I mean, what's the political message exactly? I'm not sure, but it's about having fun, looking at the more absurd side of the campaign, as the Le Monde blog likes to say. Just a closer look at that again, we can see the Love Boat vessel. And that video is part of a whole series which is being put out each day by Tumblr.com. And it's basically choosing various things each day, where we can see on Tuesday earlier this week, there was a kind of montage video of Mortal Kombat, the 10 candidates, all sort of featuring in the video game there. So sort of a bit of a quirky side of the election campaign at the moment.
Well, that's the sort of thing we hope will get people out there and voting. Well, it's time now for Faces and Places, which is France 24's regular rendezvous with voters. Now, one theme that we haven't talked about much is the rights of handicapped people. And this week we meet some increasingly frustrated people, frustrated at the everyday difficulties posed by things like the Paris metro. And one of the voters is warning that she'll vote against any candidate that threatens the health service.
Barbara has been disabled since birth, after a medical error left her paralysed on one side. But she remains positive, joking that her manual wheelchair helps build up her muscles. Yet Barbara would prefer to be able to get around Paris more easily. Access for the disabled is still a problem in France.
When we meet architects, they say they think about accessibility. They talk about standards, but in reality it's all about aesthetics. Things have to look nice in the day-to-day urban landscape. It usually means streets are built on a slope or there are stairs in the middle of a path. It serves no purpose, but it looks nice. A colorful wheelchair like mine looks nice too, just like those stairs do.
Barbara is a receptionist at the French Disabilities Association. She has a diploma in secretarial work and has been working here for the past 19 years. Officially in France, disabled people have to make up 6% of any company's workforce if it has more than 20 employees. But Barbara says these quotas can be limiting.
First, there is discrimination. We shouldn't have problems getting a job because we are disabled. They should value our skills and not our physical state. The second problem is that people who are 10% disabled can benefit from these work quotas. I am 80% disabled, but I believe an employer is more likely to hire someone who is less disabled than I am and who benefits from the same quotas.
For Barbara, good access to care and treatment is also a priority. She'll no doubt vote for the candidate who's most likely to keep the French health system in its current state of good health.
If funding is reduced for some treatments, it is possible that I will no longer be able to buy the necessary equipment, such as my wheelchair. If the state helps us with a decent social security system, then we can spend our money elsewhere.
And she's certainly planning to do that. Later this year, she wants to buy a house and act in a movie about disabled people.
Now, a very busy time coming up ahead of us in the French media, and the incredibly difficult task, Nick, of allocating equal airtime and comment for each of the candidates.
Well, it's an extraordinary moment that we're about to embark on. Next Monday, there'll be a change. Already there are some restrictions in place, Mark, about how the candidates are covered during their campaign. And there's a whole issue of sort of counting moment by moment. Journalists almost become accountants trying to figure out, exactly how much each of the 10 candidates is getting. Now, the restrictions in place now are beefed up as from Monday, and a spokesperson for the Conseil supérieur audiovisuel, the watchdog body for the audiovisual sector in France, explains what that is, if we can listen.
From the 8th of April, French law demands equality of airtime for each candidate up to the first round on the 22nd of April. That means they'll get equal time for their campaign message. If a journalist introduces a candidate, then he or she has to mention the 9 others. If a presidential candidate talks in a report, for example, then over the next 15 days, the 9 other candidates have to make a statement as well in the same programme format.
All right, a seemingly very tough job there for all the news channels.
In all honesty, it's mission impossible for them.
All right, thank you very much indeed, Mark Perelman, Nick Rushworth, and thanks to you for watching. That was the Campaign Chronicles.